Let's begin, dear colleagues. I'd like to demonstrate temporal bone from different aspects. So this is lateral aspect, and let's try to find all structures here. So number one is processus zygomaticus. I think it isn't difficult. Then I use this blue area to demonstrate to you fossa mandibularis. I hope it's good seeing that fossa mandibularis is divided with a special fissure, fissura tympano-squamosa, on two parts. Let's remember that temporal bone consists of three parts: pars squamosa, pars tympanica, and pars petrosa, which isn't seen from lateral aspect because it is situated on medial side of the bone. But now we can say that tympanic part is here and squamous part is here more anteriorly. So fossa mandibularis is all this structure, fossa mandibularis. Now let us designate number 2. What is it, number 2? It's more anteriorly located tuberculum articulare, which is, we can say, the basis of processus zygomaticus. So tuberculum articulare is located on the point of starting processus zygomaticus. So tuberculum articulare. And then I use demonstration of fissure, fissura number 4, fissura pietrotympanica. Fissura pietrotympanica. This yellow demonstration is very small part of petrous part of the bone, which we have said is located from medial aspect. We can't see here, but only this very small and narrow structure belongs to pars petrosa. That's why fissura pietrotympanica, because this is pars tympanica. And now number 5, processus styloidus, and be attentive, I use also blue color but more dense, more deep blue tune. So what is it? It's pars tympanica. I use the same color to colorize the term pars tympanica, number 6. All this area is pars tympanica. And why this term? Because number 7 is porus acousticus internus. It is the part of the bone which leads us into tympanic cavity located inside of the bone. So pars tympanica is surrounding part of porus acousticus externus. And very important to distinguish that fossa mandibularis is divided in two different regions. One of it is belonging to the squamous part of bone, and posterior part belongs to the tympanic part of bone. So we can see here that fissura tympanosquamosa, fissura pietrosquamosa, and fissura pietrotympanica, they are divided the single mandibular fossa into two different regions, posterior regions which belongs to the tympanic part and anterior regions which belongs to squamous part. And again, this yellow, it's small part of the petrous part of the bone or pyramis, so pars petrosa. The main part of pars petrosa is seen from medial aspect. And now let us try to find these structures on the real skull. So here it is. Here it is, processus zygomaticus, and this is fossa mandibularis. And this anteriorly located part is tuberculum articulare. Porus acousticus externus, here it is, porus acousticus externus, and it is surrounded by pars tympanica of temporal bone, so this is pars tympanica, and processus styloidus, and again fossa mandibularis. So now I'd like you distinguish the fissure, fissura, which divides fossa mandibularis into different regions. Posterior region belongs to tympanic part, and anterior regions belongs to squamous parts. So this fissure is looks like the fork. The basis of the fork is here. It means fissura tympanosquamosa, tympana, pars tympanica, pars squamosa, so fissura tympanosquamosa. And more laterally and inferiorly located, this small part is pars petrosa. So between them we can find two another fissures, fissura pietrotympanica and fissura pietrosquamosa. So let's continue with our presentation, and let's find the next structure, number 9, processus mastoidus. Here it is, processus mastoidus, number 9. Sometimes you can read in your textbooks that processus mastoidus is distinct, separate part of temporal bone. But another scientist thinks that it belongs to squama. So we can understand that both of these positions are very widespread in contemporary anatomy. So processus zygomaticus. Then next structure is number 8. What is it? If this is processus mastoidus, that means number 8 fissure. Fissura tympanomastoideo, because this pars tympanica, mastoid process, so fissura tympanomastoidea. Okay. Then number 10, foramen mastoidum. Foramen mastoidum. And number 11, spina supramiatica. This is spina supramiatica. And then number 12 is sulcus arteria temporalis. Very interesting question. The bone is very hard and vessels, arterial vessels, arteria, they are soft. And how soft structure can make such footprint on the hard bone? The right answer is that this structure was formed in those period of development when this part of bone was not ossified. It was also soft and even more soft than vessel. And it means it was before the birth, when bone was very soft. It wasn't ossified. And last number in our demonstration is number 13. It's really pars squamosa of the bone. So let's try to find them in the skull, in the specimen. Again, pars tympanica, processus mastoidus, and between them is fissura tympanomastoidea. Pars tympanica, processus mastoidus, fissura tympanomastoidea. Here it is. Then we should like to demonstrate small opening, foramen mastoidum. Here it is, foramen mastoidum. And then we can demonstrate spina supramiatica, spina supramiatica. And again, squama, or pars squamosa, ossis temporalis. Now we shall continue with the another aspects of the bone. Medial aspect of the bone. So let us try to distinguish different structures. Number 1 is eminentia arcuata. Let us discuss Again, we can recognize processus styloidus. Again, we can recognize the squamous part, processus zygomaticus. And now we can see pyramis or pars petrosa. So pyramis is seen only from medial aspect. And when I ask you, do you know that there are pyramids in the Egypt? I think you answer yes. And I'd like to make the question again. How much walls has the pyramid, classical pyramid in Egypt? I think you will answer four walls and 4 margins. But these pyramids in temporal bone has not 4 walls, not 4 margins, but 3. And this number 1 is located on anterior surface. It means anterior wall of the pyramids. And this is posterior wall. So there are 3 surfaces or walls of the pyramids of temporal bone. Anterior, posterior, and inferior wall or surface. And now number 1 is eminentia arcuata, which is located on anterior wall. Then what can we number 2 designate? Margo parietalis of partes squamosa. So this part of the bone is connecting with the temporal, with the parietal bone. That's why margo parietalis. Then number 3, I colorized with blue color. It means tegmen tympani. Tegmen tympani. Tegmen tympani we can translate as roof of the tympanic cavity. Inside of the temporal bone there is a special part of the organon of the hearing, that means middle ear, which has this tympanic cavity. And tympanic cavity is locating posteriorly to the number 1. So tegmen tympani, it is quite large area of anterior surface of the pyramids. Then number 4 is sulcus sinus petrosi superior. Here it is, quite deep sulcus sinus petrosi superior. We can say that it is located on superior margin of the pyramids, which divides anterior surface from posterior surface. So it's very important structure, sulcus sinus petrosi superior. Then I'd like to demonstrate number 5, very large and very deep groove, which called sulcus sinus sigmoidus. Sulcus sinus sigmoidus. This terms sinus means that inside of these grooves passes blood. There is veins, special veins, which make draining of the brain in these sinuses. So sulcus sinus sigmoidus, number 5. And close to it, number 6, foramen mastoidum. We already have found this foramen from external aspect, from lateral aspect, and now we can see that also there is from internal aspect also. Now, margo accipitalis is those part which contacts with occipital bone. And then very important hair-like structure which called apertura externa aqueductus vestibuli. Apertura externa aqueductus vestibuli. So let's continue in anterior direction. Number 9 is fossa subarcuata. Fossa subarcuata is quite small. And then number 10, processus styloidus. And on the basis of it, number 11, we can find vagina processus styloidus. So we can say that it is a bone structure which surrounds the styloid process. Then number 12 is apertura externa canaliculi cochlea. Apertura externa canaliculi cochlea. And number 13 is sulcus sinus petrosus inferior. 13 is sulcus sinus petrosus inferior. And let's continue. Number 14, apex partis petrose, apex. Number 15, also part of the pyramis. We can say also apex partis petrosa. And number 18, facies posterior pyramis. All these structure is facies posterior pyramis. And last details, number 19, porus acousticus internus, here it is. And number 17 is margo sphenoidalis squame. Margo sphenoidalis squame. And now let's try to find these structures on the bony specimen. I use this artificial colorized specimen, colorized skull, and temporal bone is here of violet color. And this is external surface, and this is cadaveric bone. And let us find all those structures on it. So, first of all, this is sulcus sinus petrosi superior. Here it is. Sulcus sinus petrosi superior. It divides the pyramis, here it is pyramis, on two surfaces. anterior surface and posterior surface. So, sulcus sinus petrosi superior divides pyramis on anterior and posterior surface. And on posterior surface, I'd like to demonstrate to you porus acousticus internus. Here it is, porus acousticus internus. Here it is, fossa subarcuata. Fossa subarcuata. Here it is, apertura externa canaliculi cochlea. Apertura externa canaliculi cochlea. And here it is, apertura externa aqueductus vestibuli. Apertura externa aqueductus vestibuli. Then sulcus sinus sigmoidum. Sulcus sinus sigmoidus. And inside of it we can find the foramen mastoidum. Again, apertura externa canaliculi cochlea, apertura externa aqueductus vestibuli, fossa subarcuata, and sulcus sinus petrosi superior. The same structures let us try to distinguish on the natural or on colorized artificial bone. So here it is porus acousticus internus, here it is eminentia arcuata, this is sulcus sinus petrosi superior, and this is sulcus sinus petrosi inferior. And it leads us into this small structure, which is apertura externa canaliculi cochlea. So, now we know two aspects of temporal bone, exactly medial aspect and lateral aspect. And now let's continue with the inferior aspect. This is inferior aspect. And now we can say that from inferior aspect we can demonstrate this brown part of the bone, which is facies inferior pyramis. Facies inferior pyramis. And now let us try to use another picture to find all the details from inferior aspect of the temporal bone. First of all, this number 25, processus mastoidus. Then number 23, processus styloidus. It is seen that processus styloidus was cutted. It isn't quite long because being cutted here. So, processus mastoidus 25, processus styloidus 23, and between of them we can find number 24, foramen stylomastoidum. Number 24, foramen stylomastoidum. Then number 28. 28, what is this? we already know that this is foramen mastoidum. We can see it from lateral aspect, we can see it from inferior aspect and from medial aspect. And then I use demonstration of blue area. It is very important, fossa, fossa jugularis, number 21. And anteriorly to it and laterally inside of it, we can find number 22, canaliculus mastoidus. So this is inside of fossa jugularis. Then number 13, what is it? Foramen caroticum externum. Very important to remember that foramen caroticum externum is located anteriorly to the fossa jugularis. So between these two structures we can find bony ridge, very important for us, which divides fossa jugularis and foramen caroticum externum. Why it's important? We shall explain it several minutes later. Number 14, again, number 14 is foramen caroticum internum. Number 14, foramen caroticum internum. You remember that there are some very important canalis in temporal bone. One of them, canalis caroticus. It serves for arteria carotis interna, carotid artery, which penetrates the skull through this canal. So it passes through foramen caroticum externum, number 13, and then to foramen caroticum internum, laterally to sella turcica, and appears inside of the skull. Then let us find this very interesting structure, number 16 and 17. What is it? It's fossula petrosa, or apertura inferior canaliculi tympanici. Fossula petrosa, or apertura inferior canaliculi tympanici. Please try to remember all these structures, and I shall prepare bony specimen for demonstrating them. So let's begin. We have discussed this deep fossa. What is it? It's fossa jugularis. Fossa jugularis. This is foramen caroticum externum. And between them we can find a very good seen ridge which divide them from each other. On this ridge we can find fossula petrosa. Here it is, fossula petrosa. So fossula petrosa is located between fossa jugularis and foramen caroticum externum. So now we can distinguish these two different fossa. And now to processes, processus mastoidus and processus styloidus. Between them we can find foramen stylomastoidum. Foramen stylomastoidum. All this violet part of pyramis corresponds to inferior surface of pyramis. So this is inferior surface of pyramis. And let us continue with our presentation. Now, number 18, apertura externa canaliculi cochlea. It is designated here, but we already demonstrated it in medial surface. It is better seen in medial surface than from inferior. Then I'd like to show that all this brown region from lateral part of the bone is fossa jugularis. This is fossa jugularis. Number 9, fossa jugularis itself. Here, fossa jugularis. We can find that fossa jugularis contacts with tuberculum articulare. Here it is, tuberculum articulare. And later it will be prolongated to the processus zygomaticus. Number 8 is processus zygomaticus. Then, number 2, pars tympanica. I'd like to remember that fossa mandibularis is divided into 2 parts. One part of it belongs to squamous part of temporal bone, and second part belongs to tympanic part of temporal bone. And the border between them is demonstrated like number 6. So number 6 is fissura tympano-squamosa. I'd like to repeat. Number 2, pars tympanica. Number 9 is those part of fossa mandibularis which belongs to squamous part. So number 6 is between tympanic and squamous part, fissura tympano-squamosa. Fissura tympano-squamosa. But we can find that medially it secondarily divides into adjacent, parallelly coming to another small fissures. Number 5, fissura pietrosquamosa, and number 4, fissura pietrotympanica. Why Pietro? Because I use yellow color here to demonstrate that pars petrosa was included here between 2 fissures as a small islet, and this islet is seen between 2 fissures. Number 5, fissura Pietro squamosa, and number 4, fissura Pietro tympanica. Very important to distinguish them. And also, again, we can find very thin fissures, fissura tympanomastoideo. If this is processus mastoidus, so fissura tympanomastoidea is here. And near processus mastoidus we can find 2 grooves, number 26, incisura mastoidea, and number 27, sulcus arteriae occipitalis. Sulcus arteriae occipitalis. Now, again, let's try to demonstrate all these structures on the our skull. I make this way. So, fossa mandibularis. Here it is, fossa mandibularis. And again, we can say that posterior part of it belongs to pars tympanica. Why? Because it's porus acousticus externus. So, pars tympanica. And anterior part of it is pars squamosa. So, this gap is fissura tympanosquamosa. Tympanosquamosa. And coming medially, we can see that inside of it there is very small islet of bone, which is petrous part included inside of this fossa mandibularis. So this included small part is petrous part, pars petrosa. That's why we can say that here we can distinguish 2 fissures, fissura Pietro tympanica and fissura Pietro squamosa. So, fissura tympanosquamosa have been divided into 2 another fissures, fissura Pietro tympanica and fissura Pietro squamosa. And another detail, this is processus mastoidus, and in the basis of it we can find very deep and large groove incisura mastoidea. Here it is. Here it is. And parallel to it, more medially located, sulcus arteriae occipitalis. So sulcus arteriae occipitalis and incisura mastoidea, this one. And I shall use another specimen for comparison. Again, let's try to distinguish fossa mandibularis, fissura tympanosquamosa, and here it is divided into 2 different fissures, fissura Pietra tympanica and fissura Pietra squamosa. Processus mastoidus, close to it the incisura mastoidea and sulcus arteriae occipitalis. Sulcus arteriae occipitalis. So, I hope comparison of bony specimen and the pictures of our presentation helps you to remember this material good. Thank you. You are free.